So moving on, robotics and automation. Now, this is building on what I've already said. I mean, as manufacturing technologies have become more advanced, it really is looking at like how can production processes become more automated and have fewer humans essentially working on it. If you look at this image from inside the Tesla factory, you can see actually, nope, I can't see a single human in there. Okay, I know it's a very cluttered image, but I mean, for the amount of processes that are being done there, these robots will do multiple functions. At least a lot of them will do multiple functions, more than a human could do in one go. Plus, they do it a lot faster and with greater precision. So, with using robotics, you can guarantee quality, you can guarantee time frame. Robots obviously don't need to stop and have a rest. They don't need to have holidays. They don't need to go home in the evening. They don't get sick. They don't need feeding, watering, need medical care. From a purely cold, hard cost business point of view, robots are ideal because they can literally run all the time. They don't ever need to stop, and assuming they don't malfunction, they will keep going non-stop. So they are a brilliant way of guaranteeing how long it will take to say make one product. So with that, they can then calculate the number of products that they can make in 1 year. So, I mean, Tesla now are famously like setting crazy high targets for the volume that they're aiming for in 1 year. Like they're trying to make 1 million vehicles in 1 year. At the moment for this year, and they're releasing their Q1 results in terms of the volume that they've created. And so the only way to do that is by having manufacturing centers that are highly efficient. They are lean. They have robots running most things, and they are very, very, very efficient at what they do. Yes, so the problems with robots can come in where, number one, obviously, like I mentioned, you're creating unemployment. As soon as you have loads of robots kicking in, like you are stripping away a ton of people that could have had jobs. Another thing as well, it makes for a very dangerous work environment. Like this tends to be like factories like this, you often can't just walk into them. There's a lot of very hazardous things going on, like there'll be welding going on and like pot riveting or painting and massive, like they've got this thing called the Giga Press, which is this huge like casting machine, and massive die press, which they use for body work. And yeah, like those are dangerous machines, and you can't really just walk into those areas. So they're quite hazardous. They are unbelievably expensive to set up. The only way to set up a factory like this is to know that you're going to create such high volume that you can make the money back. Tesla have anticipated that within 1 year they'll make the money back on Giga Berlin because its production capability is so high. Moving on then, looking at specific types of machinery, we've got CNC. Now, CNC stands for Computer Numerically Controlled Machines. Now, these are actually quite old now, but they're basically machines that will cut out something that you give it from, say, CAD data. You'd feed in, like you model something, say like this electric guitar body, you'd model that in CAD, and then you'd export what we call the G code, which is basically just a series of coordinates telling the CNC machine where to actually put the cutter and how deep to put it and then where to go next. And it will gradually just move around the body and it'll follow the profile and it will gradually cut it out. Now, with this, you get other machines. I mean, CNC routers, like, is being used here for an electric guitar body, and this is what IKEA would use for making a lot of their furniture, flat pack furniture, because it's super quick. They can just plow out the parts very, very quickly. You can drill all the holes, and the quality is very high. Like they can be finished to a point where they don't really need sanding or anything when they come off. The parts can be very, very well produced. Plus, they often don't need any post-processing. Like this guitar body, you can see the quality of the finish there is very good. You could almost use that without needing to do any further finishing on it. So yeah, it's quick, it's very, very precise, and yeah, and the quality is incredibly high. Disadvantages are that they're very expensive to buy on the whole. They do take some training to learn how to run, and also they require you to know how to use CAD. So it's all very well saying that you're going to buy a CNC machine, but if you don't have any idea how to use CAD, there's no point buying one because you won't be able to actually use the CNC machine. It'd be a bit like buying a 3D printer and not having a computer. Yeah, so watch these two videos here because you'll see like CNC routing here for the guitar body, and then what we call CNC machining or CNC milling, sometimes called, when you're working with metals. And you can see just the level of complexity and detail you can get with what's called a 5-axis CNC machine. So yeah, these machines are great. They're flexible. You can make all sorts of things on them. You could reprogram it very quickly and it will then cut something else. Yeah, they're very versatile machines, and a lot of schools are starting to have them now as well. Now, when we're talking about assembly line production, we're talking earlier what we were saying about having a whole stream of robots, and these car parts will be pretty much moving at the same time along the production line to a point where you start off with the raw material, and then at the end of the production line, the car will drive off the production line. That's really what we're talking about. It's a step-by-step process. So every step the car will go through. And I'm using cars as the example here, but like any product that's made in mass production scale will go through an assembly line production. So yeah, like we're talking here about how with say Tesla, they would have the sort of they'd have the raw material die press just cutting out the flat sheets of aluminium that they use for the body panels. They'll have the die press, which will then, or press form, which will then press those into the 3D body panel shapes. They'll then have the trimmer to finish those, to cut off any excess and finish the edges. They'll then go to like the welding robots. The robots will then weld them all together. Then they'll go on to like they'll have the internals assembled inside, and then all these different stages it will go through. It'll be over 100 different stages to then get the car finished, and then it will then go to the paint shop where it'll be painted up, and then it'll be dried and cured, and then it'll be sent to the next stage where the glass will be installed. And yeah, it's like all these different stages. Then at the end, it will be released. And so it requires manufacturing engineers to have a very, very clear plan of what is the movement of the product through the production line, and what's the most efficient, cost-effective, and time-effective way of doing that. And that's where having like multi-functioning robots is really helpful, because a lot of the time these robots can actually, like if you've got 4 robots working here on the car, that could be 4 different procedures being done all at one station. So you can have one robot welding, one installing, say, rivets, one maybe installing another body panel, and then another is installing, say, the seats inside, all at the same time. So yeah, it's incredibly efficient manufacturing when it's done to that level. Now, on to other areas. When we're talking about sort of more the enterprise side of this. Now, enterprise, and when we're talking about enterprising, we're looking at sort of people who develop businesses off of manufacturing and industry. And if you have an idea, how do you then launch that and catapult it into actually making a business from it? So we're really talking about, like, when you start a business, you need money. If you're doing anything which involves manufacturing, you need funding. And to do that, the conventional way is you look for investors. And to do that, you go and talk to some people who have some spare cash and they're called venture capitalists. And they like looking around for opportunities. They'll be looking for who's the next Elon Musk, who's got the next crazy idea that they want to go and invest in, because then they'll have a stake in the company and they'll be able to take that money back with a massive profit, or they'll have shares in the company or something like that. So that doesn't always work like that. So Kickstarter is a website which is more called crowdfunding. So this is where just random members of the public, if you see an idea that really resonates with you on Kickstarter, and you're like, oh wow, that's an amazing idea, like I'm fully behind that really resonates with my own personal values and my own interests. Yeah, people might want to donate some cash. It could be as little as donating, say, 100 Hong Kong dollars to as much as you want. And different levels of donation will get you different perks and privileges. So it might be if you make a massive donation, you'll be like one of the first people to get the product that they make. And plus, they might give you a stake in the company or something like that. If you donate just a very small amount, they might just send you a little sticker saying, yeah, you invested in this company or something like that. So it's a very quick and convenient way often for companies to start. And anyone can sign up on Kickstarter. Literally any idea, big or small, you can put it on Kickstarter. Other ways of generating interest and stuff is obviously social media and using virtual marketing and retailing. Now, this saves huge amounts of money. Conventionally, in the old days, before social media, before the internet, really, people would have to pay vast amounts of money for television adverts, which were so expensive. You needed, a camera crew, studio, production, props. You need actors. It was a huge amount of money, and it might only generate a very, very limited response. Or you pay for big billboards, or you pay for pages in magazines or something. And companies still do that, but it's very expensive to do. So much more cost effective and arguably more effective is actually using social media. I mean, on Facebook obviously is now called Meta, the group, but they own Instagram as well. So if you make an advert on Facebook, you can select it to be posted on Instagram as well, and you can basically set how much money you want to spend on that advert. If you want to spend as little as $10, it will only give you a very, very limited market exposure, but it will post it for, say, 7 days, and you can select your target audience. You can go really down into the fine details of, like, I want to aim at these specific people at these ages, living in this country, and who are interested in these hobbies and activities, and do these kind of jobs. You can get really specific, and it will start. And then on Facebook and Instagram, it will then just sort of keep feeding those adverts. You see, feeding your advert to these people. The more money you spend, the more times it will feed it to them, and the greater spread of people it will send it to. So you can spend anything up to like $100,000 and they will almost guarantee that you triple, quadruple, or 10x your exposure. Compared to if you just spend a little bit. So it's great because it's flexible. If you're just starting out with a new idea, you can just pay a little bit of money, and it will just help push your adverts on a little bit more. So you're not just relying on friends and just saying, oh, can you mention this to all your friends? Send this out to all your friends. You can kind of get these companies working for you on that sense, which is really useful. Showrooming this is something that people do often with online shopping. So especially with clothes and shoes and things, this is where, like, if you wanted to buy a new pair of shoes, but you knew that you could get a better price for it online, you might go into a shop, try the shoes on in the store, but then you're like, it's really expensive. And you check on Amazon or something for exactly the same product in your size, might be like 20% cheap. And you're like, well, I don't need it urgently. I'm just going to order on Amazon, and they order on Amazon. Now, obviously the bad side of that is that it means that these shops and high street stores eventually will die out unless they are like huge. So especially in cities like Hong Kong, where rents are really high particularly for commercial rents, like showrooming is it has a pretty bad effect on companies. So what companies are now doing is they have things like pop-up stores and things that are much smaller, and they're only temporary, or they might have a very, very small area of a shopping mall where they're just there to show a few things. Maybe you can't actually buy the product there, but they can order it for you there, but you can't actually walk home with the product from there today. IKEA actually do that in some locations. I've seen one in London where it's literally just a little booth. They've got a few sample products in there you can look at, but basically the point is you can go in and talk to an IKEA expert, and they can help guide you through what you're planning and all your thoughts and stuff, and then you can order it there, and then obviously it'll get sent to your home. So that's kind of what businesses are moving towards now. Cooperative businesses, this is where businesses are owned, instead of being owned by like one person, by like the director, it's actually owned by the employees. So if you say got 50 employees in your business, a true cooperative business is one where all of the employees have a stake in the company. So yeah, it would be like having everyone would have the same portion of the business, or if not the same, they'd all have a portion of the business. And then that means, because they are all owners of a share of the business, they all have a say in the direction that the business goes in. And everything within the business is very transparent. So they all know how much each other's getting paid, because they all have certain stakes in the company. And maybe if you get promoted, you'll be given a larger stake in the company or something. So cooperatives are generally nice things. They are, it makes people feel valued, and it makes people feel like they have ownership over the business. No, they're not just an employee, they're actually an employee owner of the business as well. Then the last one is fair trade. Now, this is a hugely important thing, particularly in the food and textiles industries. So fair trade is looking at making sure that where the materials are sourced from, say coffee beans or bananas, because those are things where you commonly see this logo on, it's making sure that these people that actually farm and harvest the raw products, so the raw coffee beans, those people are paid a fair wage. Because if, say, I don't know, Nescafe, they're buying coffee beans from somewhere in South America, say Colombia, and they're not paying a fair wage, they might be paying the workers there like less than $1 a day to harvest coffee beans. But then they're selling these coffee beans in the US for, like, I don't know, something quite expensive, like could be up to $10 for a bag. That's a lot of money. That's a huge margin they're making on the product they're selling, from the cost of the raw material to the retail price. So what fair trade is, if a company has a fair trade logo stamped on it, it's basically a certification from an awarding body, fair trade, saying that they've checked the business and they agree that the business does pay the workers who actually, the local workers in the country where the material comes from, they do actually pay them a fair wage. And a fair wage is deemed to be like a wage which is more than enough for a family to live on comfortably, and it provides secure employment, and it's not just for a very short period of time. It's a sort of, it's a career for them. It'll build a family, and then with that it's good because it helps build communities and all that kind of thing. So yeah, right. So that's a very whistle-stop tour of industry and enterprise. There's a Quizlet there which you can have a go at. Yeah, so off you go.